Good morning, how are we doing? So I'm going to talk about something that's really important, I think, and that's taking things for granted. So if you are coming through and you're watching, what I want you to do is two things. Number one, tell me that you are coming through and you're watching. You can hit the love heart button. Or number two, you can comment below about the things that you most take for granted. What are those things that you take for granted? This is one thing that I was thinking about last week when I was on holiday, and I remember just taking myself off for a walk, and where we were, it was like this beautiful country area, and it's this like huge long road, and I just took myself on this hike, and it ended up being like a 4-mile hike, and because I was out of the rat race, I was very much clear-minded, really clear on like my life, reflection, perspective and everything that was going on. And I started getting to thinking about all of those things that I take for granted. Things like being able to still talk to my mum. Something as simple as being able to talk to our parents. That the fact that they are still here to be able to talk to. And how much for granted I take that one day she's not going to be here, and I'm not going to be able to have those conversations with her. Like, I keep all of the answer phone messages that she leaves. I record on my phone all of the FaceTime conversations I have with me and the kids, so that I can always remember what her voice sounds like. And that's something I really feel I sometimes take for granted, is that I just have to dial and be able to phone her. Sometimes there's other things that we take for granted, such as our kids. I spoke about this a lot in yesterday's show. I take it for granted the youth of when they want to be around us. They want you to play with their unicorns or their building blocks, or they want you to draw with them. Because it gets to a certain point when they don't want that anymore. And I know that because I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. And I know how that relationship evolves. But do we take for granted those early years and we miss them? Do we take for granted the fact that we've got a job? Whether we enjoy the job or not, just the fact that we have a job. Do we take for granted the roof that we have above our head? Do we take for granted our health, always thinking it's never going to happen to us, or a level of acceptance that maybe it will one day? I always think to myself right now, I'm really grateful that I can still run, that I can still do jiu-jitsu, that I can still do golf, that I'm still functioning as an adult, mentally, emotionally and physically. But there are times that I take that for granted. Yeah, there are. Whatever your list might be, whatever the things that you might write down, I want you to really think about how you take them for granted. Why you take them for granted. Because it's not just a case of turning around and saying, oh, these are the things I take for granted. Why are they the things that you take for granted sometimes? And usually the case is that we're in a cycle of chaos. And when we're in a cycle of chaos, our minds are not thinking outside of the box, necessarily. We're not thinking about the things that we have. There's a lack of gratitude in terms of those elements that we have in our life. I think we take for sometimes granted, look at the bigger things that are happening around the world. Look at the war that's happening, and I think to myself, well, man, how lucky are we to be able to walk down this seafront, for me to be able to get in my car and walk down this seafront and really be risk-free, you know. Understanding why we take things for granted is really important part of learning to be more grateful. Actually taking time to reflect, put things into perspective and connect with gratitude is important, and it doesn't take a lot of time. For me, I've just finished my morning walk. It's taken 40 minutes. You could just do a 20-minute walk where you sit and you think, man, do you know what? I'm just going to text my buddy and just check in, see how he's doing. Do you know what? I'm just going to switch my phone off when I get home from work, and I'm not going to turn it back on until the kids are in bed so I can have that time with them. Do you know what? I'm not going to keep waiting until Monday to go to the gym. I'm just going to go and do a 20-minute session, make sure I'm looking after my body. And it's not until we've lost something, i.e. a parent dying, i.e. a lack of mobility with your health, i.e. piling on the weight and feeling really unhappy about it, to your kid getting to that age where they went, no, I just don't want to play, thanks Dad. And then we suddenly realise that we've missed that time, and that time can never be recaptured. And what we don't want is then that feeling of regret, because regret is a heavy weighted emotion. And we turn around and we go, oh my God, I really took for granted that time. I really took for granted those phone calls. I really took for granted this or that. And then suddenly we're building up regret. We don't want regret, right? I read a really interesting article. I can't quite remember the guy's name, but he interviewed 5 terminally ill patients who only had months to live. And they were asking those people, if you could go back in time, what would be the things that you would change? And on each one of those guys' lists, each one of those 5, all said they took for granted time. All took for granted relationships. All took for granted the good things that they have in life, because they never thought it was going to happen to them. They never thought it was going to end. They were too consumed to really recognise what they had. And it's a powerful statement, right? So what I want you guys to start thinking about is, what are those things that you take for granted, and how are you going to flip it? How are you going to flip it so we're not taking it for granted? So we're really embracing and taking advantage of our kids when they're young, the phone calls with our parents, getting to the gym, and the fact that you can get to the gym right now. And start shifting. What's that 1% win that you can get? How can you flip it? How can you change it? So if you need help with that, one of the things that we do is that we help men, we train men, educate men on how to build more structure, routine, perspective and gratitude by having more of a purposeful direction to get you out of that cycle of chaos. When we come out of that cycle of chaos and we step out and we're like, wow, there's a bigger wide world here, we start achieving more in our life. We start living with more purpose, more fulfillment, more direction, more passion, more connection to the world, more connection to what your life is and the meaning behind it, right? The byproduct of that is being more structured, being more accountable, being fitter and healthier, being leaner, being clear-minded. So I'm running a free masterclass on May the 3rd to teach 3 frameworks to help build purposeful direction. Okay? And if you want to go and know what those frameworks are, and you want to learn what the masterclass is, there's a link on this post somewhere. Read the copy. There's a link on there. Go and check out the brochure. It doesn't cost you anything. It will be about an hour and 20. Start at 8 o'clock on Tuesday the 3rd of May. And we will dive into those 3 frameworks to help you take away some tools to be able to grow and learn. All right, lads. Hope you have a great day. I'll catch up with you soon.